women will bring up concerns and the men will think, Jesus, no, really, we have to be worried about that. And what the men don't understand exactly is, well, if you let her talk through it, she'd figure out for herself that she doesn't have to be.
Oh my God, this is such unhealthy advice. It's like, oh bloody hell, you know, when she's talking about her problems, just don't listen. She'll figure it out. No, terrible advice. Now, you might already know this about me. I don't respect the man brain. That's not because I'm a man hater. It's because I only respect size. Yes, and the larger the cranium, the more intelligence one must have, which is why the smartest and most intelligent creature that should rule us all, the sperm whale. A gigantic brain. Yes, it's the size of a human body. It's a massive, massive cranium. That's the only one I respect.
Is therapy in general more useful as a general statement, maybe for women?
Oh, nice. Nice. What is this? I can't read the writing. It looks kind of like it could be the Virgin Mary on top. I'm not entirely sure. The script is a little hard to read. Could be AI designed, I'm not sure. But whichever tailor like hates Jordan Peterson and continues to fuck with him so that he just looks as ridiculous as possible, like publicly, don't stop. Keep going. You're doing God's work.
And it is for men? Or is it a totally different kind of therapy that men need? Or how does that factor into it?
That's a good question. Well, women are characterized by higher average levels of negative emotion. So one of the ways of conceptualizing that is that per unit of threat and punishment, women will suffer more than men. And there is a variety of
because of the inherent negative emotions. Gotcha. So ladies, be shopping, first off, but also be sad.
Reasons for that. But I think the most fundamental reason is likely that women are wired more than men to respond to distress of infants particularly, and that gives them a general proclivity to respond to distress. And now the upside of that is, well, infants don't die. The downside of that is women suffer from higher levels of depression and anxiety. And that's true cross-culturally.
Wait, I'm sorry, but like the whole infants don't die part is in like, oh, they're more adapted to be nurturing mothers. It's their calling in life, their lot, if you will. Men, they just can't do it. No, they can't keep babies alive. It's been scientifically proven. So that's why the very concept of having two daddies, for example, it could result in dead babies. I'm gonna have to be the first one to say, and that, again, this is not me talking, it's the science, right? The science of it all. Not at all whatever this little, interesting piece of brain matter is crafting at any given time based on information he may or may not have read at another part of his life.
And it's more true in gender equal countries. So it looks like it's deep difference. Women are also more people and relationship oriented than men. And that's actually the biggest difference we know between men and women. Women are reliably more interested in people than they are in things. Most people who incline in the therapeutic direction are female or have.
So statistically, and I believe it's one of the things we're probably going to be, dancing around, the idea that in the job market, for example, there are jobs that we see very large numbers of women participate in, such as teachers, nurses, two very big ones. Now, nurses specifically is a job that is a very, very high demand. You need nurses in society. They help keep people alive. They're incredible. They're heroes. Not all heroes wear capes, but nurses certainly are heroes. We loves our nurses. They should be well compensated for what they do. And so it's one of those situations where if you were to tell someone, hey, what should I do with my life? And you were like, well, if you want to be financially secure and you want to get into a job that you don't have to worry about, say like hundreds of positions being cut and downsizing in the same way that you're seeing with Sony and Facebook and all these tech companies that randomly are downsizing to very high degrees. Well, not randomly, but anyways, get into nursing. Nursing, there's a reason why, but usually it's associated with the feminine. Right. And it's an idea that we reinforce the femininity of it all. And you can see that when like someone like Michael Knowles will be like, oh, yeah, but it is feminine. Right. And that's why you wear all the little nurses outfits. And I was like, no, I think you're thinking of the pornos. But the fact that you are consistently trying to both associate it with women They make it sound like it's worse because it's womanly, right? As if somehow being feminine is a bad thing. But either way, associated with women, this is going to hurt men long term because unemployed men, after all, will have much higher rates of, substance abuse, much higher rates of depression, much higher rates of anxiety, much higher rates of hopelessness, and obviously suicidal ideation comes with that. So if you care about men, you want to protect men, we have to destigmatize a lot of these jobs and the very idea of these jobs being feminine. Or exclusively feminine. This is like, well, it's not very masculine to be a nurse or a caretaker. And then, you know why though? It's because things like men like things and women like spaghetti and people. So that's just, again, the way the world works, So, Venus, Mars, that kind of stuff. Only way we can do this. That's just, I'm sorry, how it's gonna have to be, And women like spa days. They like days at the spa. Men like guns and shooting and shooting things with guns. Women like cleaning, cooking, raising babies. If men try to do those things, babies die naturally. This is just, again, the way life was meant to be. And dare I say it, for the boys, for the dudes, we should be going to the spa more. I'd say this in the West, because I'll be honest with you, the Japanese have this figured out. The onsen experience, it's not a uniquely female one, okay? The boys have a day at the spa. They all get naked. They all just hang out naked. It's not a sexual thing. It's just your warm water, jacuzzis, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't necessarily have to be sexual. I mean, if you want it to be, and it's consensual with all the other boys, have yourselves a time, make a big old mess and then hopefully clean it up afterwards. But it could just be an experience where you enjoy yourself and some warm water, some massages, and some wonderful things. It doesn't have to be a uniquely feminine thing. And look at that. We did it right there. We changed the very concept of the spa day, something you would usually associate with women, by looking at another culture that doesn't necessarily gender it in that way, right? Where there doesn't just have to be, this is only something that women enjoy doing. Well, because they're feminine and they want to, of course, improve their feminine bodies because that is their value for us, the men folks. So they have to go and pamper themselves for a day. But they love it.
But relatively feminine temperament. And there are aspects of my temperament, for example, that are quite feminine. So I'm quite high in trait agreeableness, for example, like quite spectacularly high, actually. And that's a more feminine trait. Because
I love that every time I talk about Jordan Peterson, he pops up in the YouTube chat. Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, everyone. Consuming red meat boosted my testosterone. That's two. Your T levels are off the charts.
Women are also more agreeable than men. So I would say that listening ear mentality rather than that concrete problem-solving mentality is more feminine than it is masculine. Now, there are more masculine approaches to therapy, like the behavioral approaches are, I would say, more temperamentally masculine. They're a lot more problem-focused. It's like, what the hell's your problem?
What the
No,
hell?
I mean exactly, precisely. And
this man should not have a license. Like, he's so far gone. He is so high on the sauce, his own sauce of his own making, by the way. But yeah, like, could you imagine sitting across from him? It's like, oh, okay, well, bloody hell, why don't you tell me what's troubling you? What seems to be the problem? Oh, I don't know. It started out, I'm having a lot more trouble, meeting people, going to social scenarios. I've been trying to get past it by exercising or doing the old things that used to make me happy, but it just seems like a lot of things that used to make me happy don't make me happy. Oh, bloody hell! Oh, quiet! Pick up your shoes, clean your room. What's wrong with you? Stop! Like, this sounds terrible. That's not how I'm supposed to fucking, be treated. But I guess that would be feminine, wanting to have a accredited and licensed professional who cares about his patients and doesn't hate LGBTQ plus people with a fucking burning passion. Feminine. That's feminine energy.
what would you be willing to accept as a solution? And how can we work on that concretely? It's like an engineer's approach to psychological problems. And that's less talky, it's less relationshipy, it's less suffused with emotion.
Fight Club. Is that it? Fight Club, just fight each other, find myself a Bob, and then we can just punch each other in the face until we're effectively, therapized.
Having said that, women are more likely to seek out therapy than men. So they also might have more.
Wait, sorry. Did you say women were less likely to seek out therapy than men? Is that true?
having said that, you know, women are more likely to seek out therapy than
Oh, more likely. Yeah, yeah. That would have been my assumption. I was going to say that. And that's also a really sad thing because, you know, I think that there should be free access to counseling or therapy, and anyone who needs it should have access to it and shouldn't have to worry about whether or not they can afford it, whether or not they have to go and find some alternative version online that's probably not that healthy or good for you, stuff like that. I think people should have access to this, and I think men should be encouraged to speak to counselors and therapists, especially if they find ones they like that can be beneficial, that they think improve their mental health, that can have good outcomes. This is all great. All good stuff.
So they also might have more issues to discuss, you know. Well, the thing is, because women are more sensitive to threat and punishment.
But see, do you see what's happening here? This is an actual stigmatization of men going for therapy. Really deeply fucking unhealthy for men, for these motherfuckers to be as popular as they are. But when you think about what he's doing, we've already got this encoded preconception that it's wrong and emasculating or less masculine to be feminine, as if these are just polar opposites. One cannot exist without the other. You are either the masculine or the feminine, one of the two. You take your choice. And then they're obviously sexist and you're kind of send to women bad, that kind of shit. And then Jordan Peterson is going to add his own whole kind of like, you know, Carl Jung style, like, well, you know, they are inherently more emotional and sensitive, most likely due to the fact that they are predisposed to negativity. So because of that, you don't want to be that. You don't want to be like, you know, sissy boy, do you? Gay, emotional? No. You got to be hard, tough, wear plaid, work with wood, have wood behind you. Or solid
More
brick.
things bother them. Now, you might say, get over it. It's like, well, you know, yes and no, because one of the advantages to having a lower threshold for detection of threat is that you see problems earlier. And now the downside is that the false positive problem, right? You see problems when they don't exist, you know, and you're not going to get one of those without the other. It takes very careful discernment to. That's partly, I think, why the dynamic of a marriage is so useful for people psychologically. You know, women are going to be more likely in the typical marriage to see where problems might be arising. Right, but men are going to be better at constraining that. Now, sometimes the men get too constraining and they'll ignore, you know, and then that's not good. But
it's like it switched from like the lav mic to his computer microphone.
Sometimes the women get too sensitive and are responding to crises that don't exist. That's not good. And so good communication within a marriage optimizes those two approaches. It's like it's the minimization of two kinds of error, false positives and false negatives. So
would you say that therapy could be more, the general statement is more geared towards women? Because it seems to me that women, is a very broad statement, obviously, but women, many of their problems or their unhappiness comes from not.
It's because he's told us not to be so sensitive. Hey,
feeling understood, especially in a relationship. Not feeling understood is the root of many of their, you know, problems. Whereas for men, and maybe I'm just speaking, maybe I'm extrapolating from my own psyche or something.
No,
but
well, you are.
For men, it's.
Well, the thing about women, like, look, everybody needs to put their cards on the table.
Okay.
Everybody needs that. Now, I would say, as a rule of thumb, women have more cards to put on the table.
You're just profoundly amused by your own choice of phrase there.
As a rule of thumb, women.
As a rule of thumb, you know, the early bird catches the worm. Oh, you know what that means, right?
Women have more cards to put on the table, and that's a consequence of their enhanced sensitivity to threat. Now, one of the things you find in dealing with women, therapeutically or otherwise, is that if you let them put all their cards on the table, they often figure out for themselves that most of the issues aren't relevant. But they're not going to figure that out without.
That's so condescending. Women in particular, you know, a little bit foolish, silly creatures they are. Adorable though, love them. Yeah, but thing is, when they actually are allowed to describe a lot of the things that might be troubling them, you find out they're all just stupid. Like, all our problems, they're just dumb. They don't know what they're talking about. And then they figure it out for themselves. They're like, whoa. And you're like, I know, therapy. $500, please. Yeah, that's super easy. Super easy. Easiest job in the world.
Having the forum to do that. This is one of the constant miscommunications between men and women. So women will bring up concerns and the men will think, Jesus, no, really, we have to be worried about that. And what the men don't understand exactly is, well, if you let her talk through it, she'd figure out for herself that she doesn't have to be.
Oh my God, this is such unhealthy advice. She's like, oh, bloody hell, you know, when she's talking about her problems, just don't listen. She'll figure it out. No, terrible advice, okay? Yes, obviously, not just women, everyone can overthink problems and overthink issues and sometimes exaggerate or, like, you know, make things out to be much bigger issues than they actually are in the real world. As in, like, this is not as big of a deal. Don't worry. It's going to be fine. I know you're super, super sad or embarrassed or whatever about this, you know, encounter you had, but it's not the end of the world. You're going to do okay. This is going to be all right, kind of thing. And yeah, there could be men or women, by the way. This is not something you just constantly need to gender, but there could be men who in the opposite direction are just very good at being cold and calculated and being like, this is actually not as bad as you think, and I'm trying to be nice and rational and help you out, and will you just take my advice, woman? God damn it, your problems aren't real. Have you said them out loud? I did. Oh my God, as soon as I said them out loud, I realized I have the solution for this in my own head. Exactly, you've unlocked it. Like, sure, that could happen, but it's also good not to just be an asshole who condescends to someone based on their gender or in general, you know? If someone is like, hey, by the way, can I talk to you? Ugh. About what? Well, I just, honestly, this is worrying me and I want to, shut the fuck up. Oh, shit, you finished talking? Did you figure out the answer? Yeah, you did. Yeah, you're smart, aren't you?
Worried about that. But that will not happen without that listening ear. And that makes communication between very...
And I'll be honest, it's actually a thing that men should do more, communicate. You know, there's so much about insecurity that all people have, men included. Men do not vocalize a lot about their insecurity, lest they be gay. So because they're so scared of gay and being perceived as gay or feminine, same thing, gay, feminine, I don't know, it's all gay. They won't be as expressive. They won't talk about the things that they might be worried about, or their anxieties, or their fears and stuff like that, lest they be worried about seen as someone else as vulnerable. That's the big thing. Can't reveal the vulnerable. Can't reveal the gay. And so because of that, they won't be as vocal. This can be very unhealthy. This can lead to, again, things like depression, anxiety, if they're not able to communicate, to work through problems, to express themselves, to talk about that. And you'll find sometimes if you are a dude and you've been so reinforced by a lot of this, you might even have trouble speaking. Like even getting the words out of your mouth can be tough sometimes. You just shut down. You're just like, and that's bad. It's bad. It's unhealthy. It's something that needs to be worked on. Something all of us, guys, gals, pals, everyone's got to work on, you know, being able to express and have someone else listen to you and not vilify anyone for doing that shit also, right? Like all of this condescension, it all just leads to unhealthy men and sad men, you know, men with troubles.
Feminine women and very masculine men quite difficult because the very feminine women will be, you know, bringing up issues left, right, and center. And the very masculine men are like, let's get to the solution. You know, they're like engineers. Let's get to the solution. It's like, fair enough, you know, but...
I don't think it's quite always like engineers, especially when that is your, that's your example there, you know? It kind of seems like you're talking about physical abusers.
You can't solve the problem till you know what it is. And what the women are doing is saying, well, here's a bunch.
Fucking brilliant. Oh man, give this man more money. Buy more books. Fucking sell out more stadiums. Needs all the monies. Listen to the fucking shit that he's come up with.
Bunch of things that might be a problem. you know, and
Oh yeah, it is. It is just gender essentialism mixed in with a whole bunch of, I'm sure, older psychologists, and you know, he's fond of a lot of older authors. You know, regardless of what genre it is, he doesn't like a lot of modern discoveries in his own field. He'll ignore a lot of that, actually, to the detriment of potential future clients if he is allowed to have his license at the end of the day.
and there's utility in that, painful though it is. And it is painful virtually by definition. Now, does that mean that the therapeutic process is geared more toward women? I think that the distinction that we drew earlier between like a more talk-oriented therapy and a more behavioral therapy might be useful to some degree.
I don't have a fear of but gay, but I've never been able to talk about what bothers me. It's also something that, like anything else in life, becomes easier to do the more you do it, even if it's something that you're uncomfortable with. But there could be other underlying issues, right? I don't want to armchair psychologist anyone here. I'm trying to give as generic advice as I can. But specifically, it is something that perhaps someone who is a professional in that field, a counselor, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, for example, would be way better equipped at doing once you find the one that is good for you. It's like anything else. It's another human being. It's going to have another person's ideas, thoughts. It's just a person at the end of the day. You got to find ones that you are compatible with, that you like, that it makes you feel better for having visited eventually than not, that kind of stuff.
Behavioral therapy is pretty useful for people who are cut and dried in their apprehensions. You know, it's like, what's the problem here? What are we trying to solve? What are the simplest solutions we can take? Like I said, it's a very engineering approach to the realm of navigation. So I would say that most more masculine men would find behavioral psychology much more palatable. It's not so emotion focused. It's not so feeling focused. And I'm not recommending it for everyone. I mean, it bloody well, the other thing you got to understand too is that finding a therapist is like finding a lawyer. Like a bad lawyer, there's nothing more expensive than a bad, cheap lawyer. It's really hard to find a good lawyer. It's really hard to find a good psychologist. Like, that's a difficult thing to manage. I mean, when people ask me how to go about doing that, I would say, or I did say, at least until recently, that you should find a PhD in clinical psychology from a American Psychological Association approved clinical school that focuses on research. See, one of the things that...
But that doesn't apply to Canada? That's kind of why you're losing your license, baby. That's because you're not approved. You're seen as a potential danger to patients and society writ large. So
clinical psychologists have that physicians don't is that well-trained clinicians are actually scientists. And people think doctors, physicians are scientists, and they're not even a bit. They're not trained to be scientists. They don't know how to analyze the research literature. They don't know how to conduct research. They don't have that mode of thinking drilled into them. That takes years. Now,
I love that he's saying all this when he's on the verge of opening up an unlicensed school. As in, you cannot be certified through that school. Like, you can go to Jordan Peterson University and you can take courses for sure, and they can sell you those for very, very expensive amounts of money. And you might even sit in, I'm sure it'll be like a digital Zoom call with Brett Weinstein and other people people who deny that HIV causes AIDS. Like, genuinely people who should not be speaking on soapboxes outside of Wendy's, let alone teaching courses for anything, right? But he's totally fine doing this, and at the same time he's like, oh, you gotta find a PhD certified to make sure that they are involved heavily in research. Research is the most important thing, and like all that kind of shit. Was like, motherfucker. Then why are you trying to create this uncredited school where you're going to threaten employers? Like, that's basically what the ad is like. He's like, oh yeah, they'll hire you all right if they know what's good for them. If they know what's good for them, they'll hire you. Why would anyone ever do that? Why would anyone be like, oh, you went to Jordan Peterson University? Yeah, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I just don't want to be around you. You're quite frightening to me.
The American Psychological Association and these other accrediting organizations have become corrupt. And so, that's a problem. But I would still say, as a rule of thumb, PhD psychologist from APA approved school. That's a good first pass approximation. At least you've got someone then who is intelligent and conscientious. At least that. That's not a bad start.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Can you please hit the like and subscribe button and maybe leave a comment? It really does help the videos out. But first, the people who produce everything you see before you and make this entire channel possible: Amazing Fletch, Anna Loves Riley, Ariane McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Multimondi, Omni, Peanut Butter Blondie, Political Puppy, Quiet 185, Rachel K, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Ruby K, Cernicus, Spinach Monster, Stellar Vision, Sebastian DeMel, Trevbot.exe, Words Greenwood, and Travis McClinton. And also, thank you to every other person who helps fund this show. Their names are on the screen right now. It would not be possible without every single one of them. We cannot thank you enough. And if you want to join the Patreon, please come to patreon.com/theserfs and help us exist.